Great, so welcome everybody, and we're going to be looking at fertility and infertility, how to support fertility for women in their 30s and 40s. And so I'll be looking at I'll be giving a little bit of theory at the beginning, and then we'll go into some exercises, some movements, and end with a short meditation. And then I'll have a few questions from people. So, fertility from a Chinese point of view. The two main factors, I mean, it's not completely different from the Western point of view in a way, are our genetic energy, so our basic constitutional energy, which in Chinese medicine is called the essence. The Chinese do look at it a little bit differently than Western medicine has done up until fairly recently. And they have cycles of the flow of the Jing, which is 7 years for women, 8 years for men. And the essence is determined at the moment of conception. And the time in our mother's womb is quite an imprinting time on the quality of our essence. So they actually understood that, yes, a certain amount of our energy, our constitution, our genetics is fixed at conception. But as soon as we're conceived, we're influenced by the world outside us. And for the first 9 months of our life, we are in the womb of our mother. So in terms of looking at fertility, I think it's quite interesting to ponder, in a way, how was our own conception? What two ancestral lines did we draw together at the moment of our own conception? How did our own conception take place? And what the influences around, and what do we know of it consciously from what our parents have told us, but maybe there are less conscious memories that we have. And this is how we can actually tap into this through shiatsu, through body work, because consciously a lot of these early and very powerful memories that affect our relationship to fertility are created when our brain is not even in existence at the moment of conception. And so we can't process or access them in a way that we more normally access memories. A lot of them are unconscious. And similarly when we're in the womb. So also how we experienced our own life in the womb may well be influencing us in terms of our fertility in ways that we don't even really understand, which is why I find touch, which can put us in contact with some of these memories, especially touch with the powerful, extraordinary vessels of Chinese medicine, which do contain the origins of this memory, may help us connect with some of the aspects which may be blocking the expression of our fertility in the ways of creating children. So conception, our own experience of conception, may influence our future experience of wanting to conceive a baby ourselves, and the same with pregnancy. And also to some extent, how were we received and welcomed when we were born? How comfortable did we feel with our parents, with the world in which we were living? And these most early memories are all quite unconscious. So this is one aspect I often say, get my clients to work with. What they do know about this whole time, but also through the vessels, sometimes that starts to emerge as well. But then how do we live our life in the years after that? The 7-year cycles of essence really are indicating first 7 years for women are childhood. Before and during this time, our ovaries, which contain the eggs which will become future children if we're wanting children, are in a pause. They're not maturing eggs. We're not entered our fertile cycle yet. Indeed, I think one of the things that women do sometimes get a little bit concerned about is declining ovarian reserve. Oh, every month that goes by, my eggs are getting less. And I think it's quite helpful to put this a bit into context, that the eggs that we have in our ovaries, actually the greatest number of eggs we had in our ovaries were when we were a baby in the womb at around 24 weeks. in the womb. And ever since that time, they've actually been declining in number. So already when we're born, we have less eggs than when we were about 24 weeks in uterus. And already when we're a child, these eggs are declining before we start our menstrual cycle. They're in a state of pause. And this state of pause is going to change in the second cycle, so 7 to 14 years. And I talk about all of this because sometimes I think when people are looking at fertility and how to support fertility, yes, it's important to look at the menstrual cycle, and we will be considering that. But some of the things can go back much earlier than that. And so in this second cycle, at some point, we will start as young women, young women, to mature some of the eggs, probably more towards the end of that cycle, because a lot of the early cycles of bleeding don't include ovulation. And so that's a whole phase of our body switching on the cycle that's going to be underpinning up our life rhythms for the next, well, from 12-ish to about 50-ish. So nearly 40 years, in some cases a bit more, in some cases a bit less. So an area that we can explore can be, how were these early periods for women? What was our relationship to our body during this time? How did we experience this awakening of our ovaries? And part of that is our relation to our menstrual cycles. Part of that is our relation to the new feelings of sexuality arising in our body. And then the third cycle, from 14 to 21, is more about expressing ourselves sexually, beginning to form relationships with people. And maybe during that time, people start to have children. In traditional cultures, maybe sometimes young girls would have children as early as 13 or 14. The ancient Chinese would consider it was better to wait and to have children until the third cycle, and really even maybe the fourth cycle, 21 to 28. The Jing, or the energy, the power of the woman, the maturity physically, but also emotionally, to conceive and to support the growth of a baby during pregnancy, is much stronger in its physical form from 21 to 28. And it's a bit more mature from 28 to 35. But the ancient Chinese believed after 35, then our essence starts to go more into a phase of declining. And so I think it's interesting also that Western science has kind of now validated that yes, at 35, women are still very fertile, but gradually fertility does start to decline after 35, between 35 and 42. And then the next cycle after that, 42 to 49, well, by the end of that, we're going into our switching off phase of the menopause, the perimenopause. So supporting women in their 30s and 40s, there's actually a really big difference if it's more in the early 30s or more in the late 40s. So we're actually looking at quite a big section of women with different needs. So one of the things to consider is, what is the whole genetic ancestral energy, and I've talked a little bit about that, but also what sort of lifestyle have we had? And ancient Chinese tended to have a fairly good diet, live in harmony with the seasons. A lot of people today are not so connected with the seasons, or indeed with their body. A lot of people don't have so much movement in their body. So lack of movement, lack of connection to the body, nutrition, all of these are really important factors. One thing I think that has changed, and that has changed really dramatically over the last, well, actually since the 60s, is contraception, hormonal contraception, which obviously has real benefits, but also does start to interfere with our whole hormonal system and the very finely tuned balance that underpins our menstrual cycle. And it's a big question for me, really, how much that may be influencing and affecting women's capacity to conceive. This aspect of switching it off our fertile energy artificially, while it brings benefits, may also be blocking energy in some kind of way. And it's interesting also whether women are taking the pill themselves or not, just the changes in our environment. Well, the fact that there are these artificial hormones in the environment affect everybody, but also other drugs like insulin for diabetes treatments. That's in our water supply and our food supply. That might be affecting the hormonal balance within our body. Steroids given to animals as well. Could that be affecting the hormone balance in our body? I mention this to consider because a lot of the things that stop women being able to conceive are things like autoimmune diseases, things that affect our immune system, things that affect our hormonal system. So I've just talked about that. But even autoimmune disease, why does our body start essentially attacking itself? Maybe it's got too much to digest from a changing environment. And then a lot of the key issues, ill or specific diseases that affect women are linked often with the environment, with the hormonal balance in the body, but also can be linked with diet, especially things like being overweight or underweight. So that's a real big issue to think about, the actual diet that people are eating. But again, the food that we eat is influenced by the soil and the water of the world outside us, so we have to consider that. So there's quite a lot of complex things going on that are determining our fertile energy. So, I mean, some of the main things that people ask me about: polycystic ovaries, that's essentially is a hormonal imbalance, and that ovulation is irregular, or maybe the egg isn't being released and you're getting, it's not real cysts, but there is essentially a blockage in the ovary. And medical treatments can only really address that through giving more artificial hormones often, or anti-inflammatories to reduce some of the pain and the discomfort. And that in turn can maybe have other effects on the body. And a lot of people with polycystic ovaries, it covers such a wide range of different things, and some people have no issues with it and conceive really easily. I've had clients that, they think they can't conceive, they're going to be infertile, and it happens really easily, and with others not. And one of the other main illnesses is endometriosis, which is also hormonally linked with cells of the womb or womb-like cells being outside the womb itself, that also causes inflammation. And the treatments are quite similar. That's a kind of quick whistle-stop tour of kind of things to consider. Obviously, we have to consider the male partner within all of this, but that's a bit beyond the scope of this, although in a way, the things that support women are also going to support men. So after having taken all those factors into consideration, the tool that I find is really helpful to work with to support women to work out where energies may be blocked and to have tools to unblock it is looking at the different phases of the menstrual cycle. So first phase being releasing the blood, clearing out the womb. That clearing out, letting go process is really important. Two of the main vessels, and we'll do this in the exercises, we'll start with the clearing out, and that's a lot opening the girdle vessel. I'll just show you. The girdle vessel is really the vessel that goes around our whole pelvis. It's very broad, and we want to be clearing that out, but also we want to be supporting the flow of blood in our body. We do that with the penetrating vessel, the Chong Mai, and I'll give you some exercises for that. So releasing and transforming and clearing. And that's not so much something our society supports. We want to hold on to things, build things up, not let go, lots of attachments. So Actually, that's a good place to start. What can you let go of? So also I might work with visualizations. What in your life could you let go of? What can you release? What can you clear? And obviously the most powerful time in our cycle to do that is when we're physically clearing out our body. This is the thing, though, with some of the hormonal contraception, well, all the hormonal modes of contraception do have an effect on this clearing out process. So we may not fully release. So then it's not in a way surprising that things like polycystic ovaries and other blockages form within the body. After that, there's the phase of building up the energy. Well, firstly, gathering in the energy. That's a lot, the linking vessels and our capacity to bring in from space and gather back into our heart, and building up the energy, especially building up the blood and the lining of the womb. That's a lot, the penetrating vessel. I'll do this in the exercises. Some of you know these very well, for others they're less well known. And then ovulation is also like a mini release, but it's not a clearing out in the same kind of way as menstruation, but we need to have a strong movement within our yang energy. It's like a little mini birth, although it's halfway through the cycle. So it's releasing of potential, releasing of the egg from the ovary. Maybe the energy is blocked around then. The egg doesn't have the impetus to move down the fallopian tube. The egg isn't maybe fully released from the ovary, or some of the eggs that were also maturing just get stuck, and you don't get that then the later clearing phases within the follicle which contain the egg, and that's where you're getting builds up of cysts and things as well around that quality of the movement around ovulation. And then there's the building up, the continuing of building up, but more in an inner way to support more increase in the lining of the womb in the follicular phase. But this is also the follicle that released the egg also has that purpose now of supporting the growth of the egg by regulating the hormones, and progesterone is really high at this phase. So women's energy is a bit more gathering in, and essentially it's the same as the early phase of pregnancy, whether the egg is fertilized or not. The woman's body in this latter phase, the luteal phase, is thickening up the lining and being ready for implantation. So it's only at implantation of a fertilized egg that the energy is different. Either implantation, then the corpus luteum continues and pregnancy continues, or the woman's body keeps receiving, being ready to support the baby, or no egg arrives, so the corpus luteum disintegrates, and then we go back to menstruation. So let's go through some of these phases with some of the energies. If you want to start by sitting, I think we'll sit and just let some of what I said wash over your body. Some of you know the theory very well. For others of you, it's less familiar. So we'll just begin with a few slow breaths to just let our brain settle. So maybe actually place a hand on your brain and a hand over your lower abdomen, just resting against your pubic bone. And see if you can allow the active brain to slow down, to come into that slower rhythm of your pelvis, of your womb, which is more connected to the earth, is more yin. So maybe even connecting with your pelvic floor, if you're sat on the floor. I find that's quite a helpful image to slow down, to feel my pelvic floor connecting with the earth, my legs connecting with the earth, my feet, my ankles. Indeed, to focus on my legs. This is actually the energy of the penetrating vessel, regulating our blood. connecting us to Earth. And so as your brain slows down, bringing your hand from your brain to your heart. And our heart, of course, is very closely connected to the movement of blood, and so is very closely connected to the penetrating vessel, the chong. Feel the beating of your heart, and feel the heart beating down to connect with your womb. And as you breathe out, feel your connection to your womb. Connecting with where you're at in your cycle, if you're still at the age of being in your menstrual cycle. So which of those phases are you connecting with? And remember that the last phase, the luteal phase, is the energy of early pregnancy. So if you're pregnant, you're also connecting in a way more deeply with that phase, which continues to build. So with your hand on your heart, our heart is about our relationship with others and with ourselves. Our love for others and our love for ourselves. And our heart is our spirit of who we are in this lifetime, what our journey is in this lifetime. And so connect you and your spirit with your womb, feeling inside your womb to sense your fallopian tubes leading off it and connecting with your ovaries. Whether or not you have physical ovaries, you can still connect with the energy of ovaries, the same if you don't have a womb. And feeling within the ovaries the potential of the egg, your eggs. And if you're in the menopause, then the ovaries have released all their eggs to the outer world, and the energy that is left in them is to nourish you in a different way. And then place your hand that was on your heart in your lower back, in your mid-lumbar area, the curve at the base of your spine. And this is how we connect with the ancestral part of our kidney energy. Our physical kidneys have risen up above this space, although they actually began here. And this space in our backs connects us to our ancestors. And as we connect back with our ancestors, we connect also with our past and our time in our mother's womb. The moment of our conception. Our mother in her mother's womb, with the eggs in her womb which will become us. and our mother in her mother's womb, and her mother in her mother's womb. And you can feel the female ancestral line back through the ages on an unconscious level. You can always connect with it. And being aware of what supports you from your ancestral line. And being aware also of any challenges you may have brought with you through your ancestral line. So now we have gone within. You could stay within if you want, if that feels like you want to spend more time staying with any of those connections, then do feel free to do that. But if you want to go into the different movements of the menstrual cycle, you can do that. And even if you're not in that phase, just connect gently with that energy. You don't have to go into it very deeply. Even if you're not menstruating, there's still something that you want to release. Even if you're pregnant, we're always releasing things. They might obviously not our baby and not clearing out our womb, but we have emotions to release. We also still eliminating within physical aspects of our body. So gradually opening your eyes if you want to join me. And I think as we've been sitting, it might be nice to stand up. I will just change the focus. So standing up and connecting with this pelvic area. So just moving in whatever way. If you don't really feel like releasing a lot at the moment, just be quite slow with the movements. Just feel how you can get a bit of movement in here as you stand. Feel the different areas that we've been connecting with, perhaps. Your womb, your ovaries. If you put your hands on the bones at the front, the anterior superior iliac spine, you can get a little bit of release from here, moving and feeling if there's anything you want to let go of and release into the space. Maybe in that releasing, there may be something in your ancestral line that you want to release. So you might connect with this lower back area and just feel there's some challenges, there's some things in the past that no longer serve me, and I just want to release those a little bit. Remember to keep breathing slowly and deeply. So as you connect with the past, you maybe start to connect with all the space around you. Some of your ancestral line, or probably quite a lot of them, are still alive. So you might be connecting with people who are alive, but maybe there's things that you need to release that are not helping in your relationship with them. So feel if there's anything you want to release from living ancestors, and just do movements that feel helpful for you. I'm sort of coming down a bit to the earth. You might want to be coming closer to the earth. You may feel you want to release things into the earth. Maybe you want to release things into the space around you. Opening, releasing things from your heart. Doesn't all have to be releasing around your pelvis. I want to release, opening into your heart. Feeling the space around your upper body. You might go into more spirally movements even. The girdle vessel physically is around the girdle, but it regulates the upper body and our connection with space. And it regulates the lower body and our connection with the earth. So really feeling any movements which may arise from your girdle into your upper body, especially to do with releasing, opening your heart, also opening your brain, perhaps, opening your brain into space. And releasing into your feet, and the earth could be the other thing. So you might want to come down more. This opens more deeply in the pelvis. You might be more sort of semi-squatting, or you might be more into a full squat and really feeling your feet. And some of you may know the girdle vessel points, gallbladder points on the foot, on the sort of between the fourth and the fifth toe. But just feel where you want to hold the foot if you don't know the points. Oh yes, that's a point for me. So releasing from here, getting a flow. And then if the squatting feels not so good, you could just be on all fours and releasing, circling your pelvis, maybe even lifting up into a sort of downward dog, but just let your body move how your body feels to move. And so after releasing, again, if you feel that the releasing is helpful and you want to stay more in the releasing phase, and especially if that's the phase that you're in, just carry on feeling, especially release from the pelvis, because that's where the release is happening in the menstrual phase. But if there's other areas you want to release from, like I said, the heart, through the feet, then do so. But we'll move into the next phase now. So yes, the way that we can work to support fertility is understand the phases and understand which energies may be blocked, and then we support those energies. So coming to the next phase is really gathering in. So we want to do the opposite. And we've been opening, we've been releasing into space. Well, the opposite movement is to draw everything back in, but also in a very anchored way. So I've actually ended up on the sitting, kneeling, but if you were standing, you could also do it, then just be really aware of your feet. But breathing in, and then with each out breath, really focus on the drawing in movement, drawing into your brain. But even with the drawing in, it's not just overly condensing, there is a movement outwards with the in-breath, and then we draw in, and we can draw into the brain again. Breathing in, just feel some spaciousness in your body. Breathing out, drawing back to your heart. Breathing in, the heart is still going to be open, but you're focusing more on the drawing in. Drawing into your heart, drawing into yourself, and a drawing in to the pelvis, which is being opened up. This is a lot. The yin linking, our arms are like wings, and we're drawing our wings to curl back in, to protect ourselves, to protect our brain, to protect our heart. I've just realised I should have been doing this in French as well. So I've only remembered to do it in English. So I think I'll just have to carry on because it's almost the end of the... So drawing back in to your girdle, to your pelvis, and then drawing in to your legs. Now with the legs, it's a connection down to the earth, and it's gathering and building our energy. And this is the penetrating vessel, just slowly moving down the whole leg, but especially the inside. And the knees in this position is quite a gathering movement. And if you're sitting, you could extend your feet and keep slowly, slowly gathering down. It's like drawing everything in from space. You could have done it standing up. So if I was standing, I'd be drawing into my brain, my heart, and my womb, and actually my kidneys. Don't forget to gather into your kidneys. And then you can just slowly draw down your legs. Draw down your legs. And gather in. So touch. Touch can be very powerful for drawing the energy in. So inappropriate touch, which some women may have experienced, I didn't mention that. Inappropriate sexual touch, especially, may be blocking conception. So bear that in mind also when we're working with our clients, that touch, certain type of touch may not be so good. So this is why it's nice to start with yourself, because you can really feel what kind of touch is the most helpful. Often it's what I call the basic foundation touch, using a palm and going very slowly and being safe and secure, gathering in like a mother holding her baby against a breast. But bearing in mind that if the early mother-baby relationship was not so helpful, then maybe touch can be difficult to start with. And we have to relearn to accept this nurturing touch. So it's really important to end with the feet at some point and feel that grounding quality of anchoring to the earth. The earth, our mother, also the earth, the penetrating vessel. And then there is a mini opening again. When we've gathered our energy to a certain point, this gathering in is helping our eggs to mature, some of our eggs to mature. And so we gradually just help feeling the eggs maturing. And then just see if you can feel that much more subtle movement of release. It's more an inner release. You might feel you want to do some movements to release. Or you may just feel it's very subtle, and so it's more of an inward meditation type of movement, a spiraling from one of your ovaries. But still you could feel a gentle opening of the other side, even if no egg is releasing, but just feeling like a spiraling, a very, very subtle, gentle releasing within your ovaries. And you may want to do very light movements. You may even want to be standing or kneeling and just move and open from the ovaries. Feel a very gentle, but it's a more inward releasing. It's not that outward releasing that we did of the menstruation. It's an inner, gentle, subtle, that you may just do very gentle spirals within your body, because that's actually what the egg is going to do. Just start spiraling down the fallopian tube, or just being absorbed into the body, but it has a movement to go down the fallopian tube into the womb. You might want to do a spiraling, an inner spiraling movement to feel this movement down the fallopian tube, spiraling and spiraling. But if it's not fertilized, this spiraling movement only lasts for a day or so, maybe a couple of days, and then it just dies essentially in the fallopian tube, but it's not really dying, it's giving itself back into your body in another form. It's an expression of essence that then stays within the body for you, even after there are no eggs. That's because all this energy is now somewhere else in your body, nourishing and supporting you, rather than planting in your womb to be nourished by you to create new life. So after this subtle opening and clearing, release, the inner release of ovulation, then there is more of an inward movement, like the gathering in of early pregnancy. Well, it is the gathering in of early pregnancy. But that, for some women, it may mean really just gathering in and being quite still and resting and anchoring. So maybe actually similar to many of the movements of the second phase, in fact, when we gathered in from the outside. This time we're carrying on with the gathering in to support growth within the womb. Or maybe there is a rise of energy because there is a more full energy at this time. There's a rise of energy, so the energy gathers, but maybe there's a feeling of, yes, I just want to be anchored, but there's still some energy. I don't want to be just still and static. So feeling how this phase of building, continuing to build the lining of the womb, continuing to build the blood within the womb, within the body, feeling the connection between your heart and your blood. It's the penetrating vessel again, and you may want to carry on feeling a building, gathering, but maybe with some movement, an inner reflection, a feeling of more energy in the womb, maybe more anchoring to the earth. So I'm just giving ideas of some movements in my movements, but you do whatever movements help embody these feelings for you. Of continuing to gather, thickening of the lining of the womb, maybe more of a feeling of solidity and connection to the earth within the body. So really feeling the feet, really feeling your legs, maybe sinking your knees, feeling very present and very solid. So if a woman feels weak in this phase of her cycle, then you know that the energy is very weak. Very weak. If a woman feels weaker in the early phase after menstruation, that's when the energy's been released. So there is going to be a feeling of emptiness, of lack of energy. But in this fourth phase, yes, there's a slowing down, but the energy is wanting, it should be feeling quite strong. It's ready to receive a baby, a fertilized egg, which can burrow down and put roots. So it's got to be like a nice nourishing earth, like Mother Earth, which, like a plant that can put down the roots and really burrow down in. And that's the energy of implantation. So for these 2 weeks after ovulation, with an average cycle, it's this burrowing down, connecting to the earth, being solid, being grounded. And so if the energy is weak at this stage, we know that this shows a very deep weakness in the underlying energy, which I didn't go into assisted fertility, but that may be the case for women who've had medical treatments to conceive, who've had their ovaries overstimulated to produce more eggs, who've had eggs taken out of them, and then the body's cycle altered for then implanting the eggs back in, and maybe they're at this stage and they're very depleted. So then you know that you really need to nourish and support them with slowness and with resting. So now, we'll all imagine that we're going to come back. Where in this cycle are we coming back to? If we're pregnant, we carry on with this anchoring and solidity. And because we don't lose blood each month, this is the Chinese view, or blood or essence, and we're not ovulating, all this extra energy is in the body. So we're actually having more energy in pregnancy, not less, even though we're giving, obviously, a lot of this energy to the baby. But if we're depleted, maybe it's taking too much energy. So just ponder on that and either come to sitting or to lying down. I'll just bring my camera a bit closer in. And I'll just let you absorb some of that. So we'll sit in silence for a little moment, closing your eyes. If you prefer to lie down, then make yourself a nest. That's also the energy of the fourth phase, the phase we've just been exploring. How can our womb be a nest to support the fertilized egg? And if the egg isn't fertilized, or if we're in the menopause, then just how can our womb be a nest for us, to help us be anchored to the earth? And maybe you have already, but if you haven't, now just take a moment to connect back in with where we started, with the feeling within your womb of your connection to your ovaries. The inner creative space of potential within your palaces, your reproductive organs, your inner temple of potential. Containing the golden seeds, or maybe containing the memory of all the seeds which ripened and were ovulated, and the seeds which didn't ripen, which were reabsorbed back into your body. Most of your eggs, out of the millions that you had when you were in the womb of your mother, have actually stayed within your body. Well, all of them, unless you have had any children. And then they have expressed themselves within your children's bodies. But all the others are within your body now, nourishing you, shining their light, their gleaming light of creation within your body. And so I'll let you stay here, connecting with the energy of your creative potential, shimmering within your body for as long as you want. Thank you for sharing this space with me.